This year so far, we're up for $100,000. How many trades is it, do you know?
It is 6 trades. I can count on my freaking hands how many trades that is taken me to get to 100,000. So to finally hit 100K in 6 trades, I was like, whoa, this is great. You're making incredible progress. I mean, sniper entries, beautiful setups. I didn't realize that a lot of people aren't actually doing what they're saying. I got a little bit of a big head, actually, to find out that I am one of the few that can actually prove it. I was flabbergasted. I was dumbfounded. Really? Nobody can show? Then that made me question the industry. So I'm like, okay, wait, maybe I am actually special. Because I was comparing myself to every other influencer, every other trader, to see that I am one of the few that can actually back up what I'm saying. I was very shocked. It's going to be a long process. But one thing that I think is the most important that I've just come to find, almost like an epiphany, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where I can give all credit to my success, is because of this one thing. And this is, maybe it's going to blow your mind, maybe it's not. But it is the fact that if you are
Number one podcast in the trading space, the fastest growing, and that's thanks to every single one of you. Before we get into this incredible episode, guys, let me tell you about how you can get a free trading plan to completely elevate your trading. There's a link in the description below. We're doing a free email list as part of Words of Rizdom now. We're getting as much value to you as possible, which starts with when you sign up a free trading plan. Next to that link, you will see a free Telegram where I am giving mindset hacks. I'm giving my forecasts for the week in terms of what I'm looking at in the markets. I'm giving updates on the podcast and so much more. So make sure you join that too. We're almost at 13,000 members at this point. Now with Alpha Capital, I'm also going to be giving away a free laptop, cash, iPads every single month, just for being subscribed and having your notifications turned on the podcast. So make sure you do that right now. I enjoy this episode. Welcome everyone back to the Words of Rizdom podcast, the number one podcast in the trading space. And that's thanks to all of you and our incredible guests. With this podcast, all we look to do is give you as much value as possible as traders, get you improving as traders, more consistent, more profitable, more capital. And as I say, incredible guests allow us to do that. And talking of which, we have a returning guest. About exactly a year ago, we had this guest on and we met at the FX Summit. And a year later, here we are, and we're here to catch up and see what she's been up to. The one and only Tori Trades.
Hi, Riz. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Welcome back.
It's awesome to be back in Miami. We got a lot to touch up on. It's been a wild year.
Well, the last episode was incredible. It did really, really well. You shared quite a lot of your journey at that point. But as you say, the last 12 months, it's crazy. 12 months has gone by fast, also slow, but then also so much happened in 12 months.
Yes, very much so.
Well, can you catch us up on anything? What's happened over the last 12 months for you?
All right. So the trading has been excellent. Excellent. I mean, just excellent is all I can say. I think the last time we talked, I was like, okay, I've got my trading down. What's next? And I wanted to pursue new business endeavors, get more into the back end of trading itself. So I since this year, I researched, how do brokers operate? How do prop firms operate? The tech behind TradingView and indicators. So I have really dove deep into the actual industry itself, being outside of just a trader. So it's been fascinating. Pretty, I feel like I tapped into some matrix. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane.
It is crazy, actually. I think the average trader doesn't really understand how much depth there is. Some people are against doing business within trading and not just trading. I understand the idea of that, but I don't understand really in terms of practicality. If you have a passion for the industry, knowledge on the industry, you want to make as much money from the entire industry,
Yeah, absolutely.
But they don't realize how many different avenues there is. As you say, you just named just a few there, and there's probably even way more.
Very much so.
Just within those things. Is there anything in particular that got your interest? Anything that's maybe coming in the future? Maybe you don't have to share, but just generally, is your mindset to get involved in certain businesses and start your own?
So after the summit, I was incredibly inspired. Well, a lot of things happened actually. So I guess I keep forgetting there's a moment right after the summit. So outside of being incredibly inspired, but I was also, in rooms with these other traders who the amount of money that they make in trading is still, it's not unfathomable, but it feels pretty far away from where I'm at still. So my trading right after the summit was not so great. Yeah. I took one of my bigger losses right after the summit, and I held on to a trade because I wanted that specific trade, that particular trade. Like, this has got to be the one. I over leveraged, and I held through drawdown when my strategy told me to get out, and it was purely because I was just like comparing myself to these other guys, and it was such a bummer. I mean, I worked through it. We're fine. I mean, I've had bigger losses since then, but we're still improving. And but the mindset that I was in right after the summit was very conflicting. I was incredibly inspired, but also like a little bit defeated because I had been trading for just as long as some of these other guys, and I'm like, they're making $100K in a trade. And I'm like, I'm not even close to there yet. I'm like making 20, if that. And so I went too heavy in a position. And I really had to do some, a body scan, some self-talk, positive, bringing it back down. I'm like, okay, I'm on my own journey. I'm not where these guys are at. And it helped set the tone for the rest of the year for sure.
It's interesting you say that because, as you say, it was a very inspiring event. Just even putting the influencers and the known names aside, just seeing this many traders, and the questions they were asking, no doubt loads of people coming up to you. And just being in that environment, because we're so lonely most of the times. If we are communicating with anyone, it's on apps or Zoom at most.
Yep.
And when you're there physically and you see all these traders and they're all asking questions, they're all very happy, very, the energy is really good. Energy is really good. And then when you include the influencers who we all see and watch and observe, and we were joking yesterday how even though it's been 12 months, it feels like I know what you've been up to the last 12 months.
Yeah, right.
Because you document everything. And obviously I'm always posting pods and updating as well. So it's so easy through social media to think, oh yeah, I know this person and I know what they've been up to, etc. Right. But it's interesting as you say, like you were inspired. But then equally, it was kind of not a negative, the actual summit, but it was like, okay, there was like a sense of rush, a sense of...
Very much so.
I need to achieve the exact same. And though it's good to be inspired, it's just like a careful balance. Like, what did you do to like kind of fix that? Because a lot of people, unfortunately, they will make that mistake and then they'll keep making that mistake. But I'm guessing you didn't do that.
No, absolutely not. I luckily right after the summit, I also went to go see my uncle. So you could imagine, like, it's like going to church for a trader. It is like going to church, going to talk to my uncle. Like, he brings you back down to earth, but also inspires you. And it's just, I got everything I needed. He was incredibly proud. And we would talk about, the level that I'm at, the level that he's at, the struggles he's having with trading. Market conditions were also pretty weird last year right after the summit. I believe there was like this eerie feeling of, it's been happening for the past year, but all of the indexes were thinking there's going to be this recession. There's going to be like this drop. And it never happened. And it just kept going higher and higher and higher.
Even now.
Yeah, still, I'm confused. And it's so weird because everything is pointing to this recession that's going to happen. And the market is showing us otherwise. Higher highs. And my uncle was struggling with that. And he's like, I've got a short bias right now. And you could imagine how much that's hurting me. And so he really just brought things back down to reality. And it was the coolest thing. To be honest, I think that's what helped. I could have done it myself, and I'm usually very self-aware, and I've got an incredible amount of like coping strategies in place and journaling and positive self-talk and reflection, all of the above. But he just shortcut the entire process, like really just brought me back down to earth in like a single conversation. So I'd say that was the key factor right there.
When it comes to that, do you feel like, because he's been trading probably 20, 30 years at least?
Yeah, almost. Yeah. About 30.
So like tapping into that sort of wealth of knowledge and experience, like market conditions, wins, losses, etc. Is it really a very positive force, even though you may not use it all the time? Is it a very positive force to have that sort of someone there who understands, who actually not only understands but has been there for a long period of time, versus majority of traders, unfortunately, are very much alone, as we said, and they don't really know. Even if they know other traders, they're at very similar levels, or they're not, even at being at levels, they're normally not as profitable.
Yeah.
So having someone there who's profitable, 20, 30 years of experience, how helpful has that been just generally in your journey to be able to rely or just fall back to that wealth of knowledge there?
I think I owe all of my success to that. And I understand how privileged I am to have that, because I don't know if I could make it if I just had to rely on a community or like this influencer that I couldn't really didn't really have access to, like maybe some DMs, maybe some emails, maybe if I took, one of their mentorships, I could maybe have access to them within that time. But it is not the same to be able to call or like to show up and to do it repeatedly and throughout your entire journey. So I think I owe all of my success to that, because there were times where I was at my lowest point and I wanted to quit. But then I called my uncle and he's like, "You're going to be the best. Keep going. Great loss. That sucked. I'm sure it hurt. Let's keep going." So it's so beneficial, and I don't know how I can. It almost seems like a little bit discouraging because for your everyday trader, because they don't have access to that. And I wonder what the closest thing is. Like a community is a little bit different because they're all, like you said, they're all at the same level. So they're like, yeah, we're going through the same struggles. So what do we do? Like they're just kind of pointing the finger at each other. And then, influencers or mentors, they're not as accessible. And it's hard. Then like, do you find a micro influencer or someone who's just above? It's like, you don't get that much knowledge. It's a tricky thing. I wonder I don't know if I'd make it.
I think there's only one way of doing it, I think. Well, not only one, but the one that comes to mind. And it's not exactly the same, because obviously you're able to have that conversation, the back and forth, versus the suggestion I would make is to research those sort of experienced traders, whether they're famous or not, but more than likely if you're going to have to research them, they're probably well known. Yeah. So like market wizards, for example, and just general interviews from maybe the past of people who have that wealth of knowledge. And that's probably the closest you're going to get. You won't be able to do the feedback. Like you won't be able to reach out, here's my problems, look at that. But I feel like the benefit of doing that is you actually recognize the similar traits that successful traders have when it comes to the mindset, when it comes to handling risk. And even and you realize all their strategies are usually different, which is fine. Yeah. But in the end, it really boils down to, most of the time, following the trend, having good risk management. And a lot of the time, most of them describe it as like treating it like a game. Right, so it's a big game, and you're passionate about it. You have fun, and of course you have to treat it professionally. But you don't. When you treat it like a game, if you take a loss, like when you play a video game, for example, you take a loss, you don't just done, throw it out. You normally do it over and over again until you beat that level, right? And it's interesting when they say that. I don't know how do you think towards the market when you think of it? Is it something that you feel like is this difficult thing? Is it something you find is easy? Is it something that you find as a game,
I can relay this back to Guitar Hero, which was one of my favorite games.
Guitar Hero, yeah.
And I think I had to do Through the Fire and the Flames on medium 100 times to even pass the level. And after that 100th time, you pass it, and then it gets easier. And I think after 9 years, now that I've been trading for 9 years, the game is easy. And that's easy to say after 9 years, yes. I know at the beginning it was not easy. And I think you absolutely can't give up. Like, you got to know that when you fail, you try again, you fail, you try again. And maybe just understanding, what do you do to help you try again? Like, you're not going to throw the guitar across the room and break it. And then at that point, now we're just destructive, or we're going to take a healthy break. There were times where I would play too long and then I would start looking at things and the whole room would be moving up. So like maybe just taking a break, healthy break until the vision comes back. So it's just kind of relating that to exactly like a video game. You don't quit the rest of the game. So when you lose one level, you're done. No, absolutely not. You try again. And then maybe you're looking up cheat codes, you know what I'm saying? Maybe there's some things to help you out and maybe you can make it slower. So doing your research. I mean, exactly like you said, doing research, finding videos that help in similar situations, and just coming up with good coping strategies, good tactics to help you when you do fail, to keep the motivation, to keep the encouragement. It does get easier. I promise it gets easier. You just got to put the chart time in.
That's it. It's always the chart time. Like, what's it been like for you? Because I imagine there was a period of time where people probably thought the whole uncle story was fabricated.
Made up. I didn't even have an uncle. That's what they think.
And then at one point it was ICT, right? Just as a joke.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yeah, that was... Oh, my God. Yeah.
People believed it, though. It's
they
so
did.
Funny. That's that's just kind of the nature of social media. It goes to show, like, our industry, you can say something as a joke, but people take it. I have a new show. It's called a day trading show. It's like a comedy thing, and we do these skits. And really, we're just being playful, really. I do it because I enjoy it most of all. But we do these skits where it's like we be the biggest furu as possible. Absolute furu as hell. And people comment as if it's real.
They think it's real.
They're like, oh, you scammer, you fake guy. And I'm like, of course it's fake.
Oh my God.
You can see it, unless you believe that we're there putting like 10,000 lots on gold on NFP and made 5 million and trying to sell you a course.
Lord.
But it's fun. It's fun. I love the industry. But in terms of, I was actually going to ask you a question about that. Do you feel, or do you know, have you ever asked your uncle, like, I know you did that project. That's how you kind of got started. He was trying to teach you. Did he ever think that you would go this far as you've gone?
Let's take a break for a minute there, guys, because I want to tell you about the #1 prop firm in the world, and that is Alpha Capital. Let's get straight to the point. You want a prop firm that consistently pays out, that has its own strong infrastructure, meaning its own technology and its own brokerage, which means that you get the best platforms to trade on, as well as having institutional experience as its founders and leaders. Now, let's just quickly look at the Discord here for the payout proofs. You're talking 6 payout there, 7 payout there, first payout. Look at all these payouts in the Discord. Make sure you go check that out. Now, you can get 20% off all your challenges with Alpha Capital using the code RIZ. That's capital RIZ. 20% off thanks to the podcast and thanks to Alpha Capital. Go secure your challenge today. Now, Alpha Capital has also joined the future space. Alpha Futures has launched and is here today. Now, they are revolutionizing the space by offering the very best drawdown in the entire industry, including the 100K accounts and 150K accounts that they offer, and that's at 4%. Absolutely insane. On top of that, Alpha Futures does not trail your equity high or low for the day, meaning that if a trade goes back to break even, you do not have a chance of losing your account because of that. That's thanks to Alpha Futures. On top of which, they have no buffer zones or 60-90 rules on withdrawals like other prop firms in the future space have. Alpha Futures is here to revolutionize the space with the same team behind Alpha Cap. So make sure you use my code again, RIZ, all capitals RIZ, for 20% off your futures challenge. The links for both the cap and the futures will be in the description below. Check them out. Secure your challenges with the very best. Alpha Capital and Alpha Futures. Now let's get back to the episode.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, he knew. I don't know if he thought I would take the education route as well, or if I even would dive into the industry itself. I don't think he expected that, but I kid you not, from day one told me I'm going to be the best trader. And it's just, could you imagine that type of like motivation? And whether he was just saying it or not, whether he truly believed it, I don't know, but it doesn't matter because it got me to where I am. And I think that encouragement, that positive, reinforcement truly got me to where I am. I think I needed somebody to believe in me when I didn't, and I don't know if he thought I would get this far, but every time I call him and my aunt, like when I call, they're like, oh, hold on, let me get Aunt Lynn over here. And then they come over and they're like, what's new? How's it going? And it's the coolest thing ever.
It must be amazing though, because like that's the beauty of being a teacher, even though you're related. At the end of the day, I'm sure for him it's a very fulfilling thing to see how much you've done, not only for yourself, but then the wider impact you've been having as well.
Yeah.
It must be an incredible thing. Now, what was interesting in our last podcast is there was a particular part of your journey that you explained, like you have never blown an account. And a lot of people found that really hard to believe.
Very much so.
And they use that as a point of reference to be like, fake trader, it can't be real. And I find it interesting. I was like, okay, but I know anything's possible, number one. But two, since then, you recently shared you were on Trader Nick, correct? Yeah. Trader Nick, who I'll be seeing soon, actually. So I should really get that down.
Very much so.
But you recently he did like a challenge on Twitter.
Yeah.
He said, if you could prove, X number of years, X number of time, broker statements to prove profitability, I think you said $1,000 or something like that. And then there was one trader, I think it was like a sort of random guy, and then yourself. Random. I was quite surprised, but you came on.
Oh, yeah.
And you did like a little interview going through it, and 2 years plus of broker statements, proving your trades. But of course it's photoshopped, right?
Of course. Yep, none of it's real.
How does it make you feel though? Like, one, obviously you get questioned, which I kind of get. If we're in this space, okay, people are going to question you regardless of what you say and do. But they always ask for broker statements, prove yourself. Prove your profitability. Okay, you go and do that. So what's your thought process when you actually do it?
and then people still try and claim that that's not real.
Yeah.
And now you need to do this next thing and this next thing, and it just, where does it end?
Yes, exactly. And that's what I am coming to find. I did the live logins. I did the broker statements. I showed my TradeZella stats. I showed that my trading view is connected to my live broker. And then I find out at a point, no one's ever going to be satisfied. So then it is exhausting. At that point, I feel like I've almost been, what's the word? It just feels like intrusive. Like now I feel like I gave too much of myself away. And I was like, I didn't have to do all that. And then for these people to be like, it's invalid anyways, I'm like, okay, what a waste of my time and energy. But I just always bring it back to like, okay, I'm doing it for my students. Those people understand that, I'm genuine in the most way that I possibly can be. And they take everything I say for face value, and they understand that they've got discretion and they can put their trust in me. And that's a huge thing to have. Like, that's a big weight to have, to everyone's trust, and to be like, okay, everything I do has to be transparent. So I just always will resort back to them. It's for my students, for my community, because everyone else, there will never be enough proof. Never.
How does it feel though to be able to do that, and actually do it? Because in this space, there's all those questions, but then when you get to be that person, one of the very few who prove themselves, I'm sure it's a good feeling in some way.
Yeah.
Being able to sit there and say, hey, I'm real. Everything I've done and said, not only is it documented, because like with the loss you mentioned about after the summit, I remember you documented that.
Yeah.
You shared, if I'm not mistaken, I think you shared it maybe while you were even going through it. Like
yeah.
Holding the drawdown. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's a clip. And again, so you're being transparent with the trades, the wins and the losses. And then you're showing, like you said, live logins, etc. So how does it feel to be one of those people, one of the few people who've actually been as transparent as possible?
I gotta say, I just found this out this past year since our last pod. I didn't realize that a lot of people aren't actually doing what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I got a little bit of a big head, actually. I got a little bit of an ego boost to find out that I am one of the few that can actually prove it. I was flabbergasted. I was dumbfounded. I was like, really? Nobody can show? Like, then that made me question the industry. And then I'm like, then it did begin to make everything make sense. I'm like, okay, wait. Maybe I am actually special. Because I was comparing myself to every other influencer, every other trader. And I'm like, why am I not there? Like, I've put in so much work and I'm not at this level. And then to like see that I am one of the few that can actually back up what I'm saying and, give myself credibility and validity. And I think it definitely gave me a big head. I'm gonna be honest. I got a little bit of an ego because I was like, wow, there's not many people that can do that. But now that could be me being naive, and maybe I haven't done my own research on, enough influencers. But I feel like from the feedback that I've gotten from the community, everyone was so shocked. For the ones that did believe it, they're like, oh my God. I'm like, what do you mean, oh my God, of course. Like, yes, this is real. Do you really think that this isn't? And I was very shocked that that's not something many educators or influencers do in the space, and the fact that I could do it, it gave me an ego boost, I'm gonna be honest.
Oh, rightly so, I'd say, rightly so, and well deserved. And part of the statements though that you put out or shared is that this year so far you're up $100,000, which is incredible. So congratulations.
Cool.
And
thanks. One
thing I found interesting though is that it's not like a large number of trades.
No.
Some might assume that it would be, a good number of trades, but how many trades is it? Do you know?
It is 6 trades.
6 trades.
I can count on my freaking hands how many trades that has taken me to get to 100,000.
Would you say that is that part of your strategy? As in, like, you literally just waited for certain trade setups, or like, what's the thought process there? Or are you just happy with the amount you made in that period, and therefore sort of stepped off the gas a little? Or?
Yes, I mean a little combination of the two. So I haven't traded in about, I think, a month and a half, and hitting that goal was huge, and I wanted to. And those numbers. When you think about it, like, I feel like I deserve a little bit of a break because I'm holding for about a week, and seeing those numbers fluctuate and going to sleep and waking up and going to sleep and waking up and still having that same trade open, like, it's exhausting. So to like finally hit 100K in 6 trades, I was like, whoa, this is great. You're making incredible progress. I mean, like, sniper entries, beautiful setups. And I'm like, okay, let's take a little break. And that's what I've done. But as far as the strategy goes, it's not necessarily like my strategy isn't for, you know, the 4 hour time frame. I applied the same strategy to every time frame. I used the trend lines in the 5 minute time frame when I first started learning how to trade. I used it in a 1 hour, and then the 1 hour to the 4 hour was one of the hardest transitions to make. And last year, you know what? I don't know. When I did the pod, that was halfway through the year. So we even still got to catch up on that part. So all of 2023 was my journey into swing trading, that 4 hour time frame. And I went through every single month. Now, obviously, there were a lot of trades at the beginning. But I did a YouTube video where I went through my entire journey of that transition from the 1 hour to the 4 hour. And like just looking at the cumulative P&L, like just the chart, you can see the struggles, but then the benefits of just sticking to one thing, one time frame, one strategy, and just mastering it. And it was like January was awful. Like I placed way too many trades. You look at it and you're like, that's not a swing trader. That's ridiculous. And you could see the struggles that I was having trying to just stick to the 4 hour. And then February was a little bit better, and so on and so forth. And then I was able to not only make profit, which is incredibly difficult as a trader, but while simultaneously trying to transition to a new time frame. So last year I made 100K in my full 2023, and I walked through all the months. And then this year, I feel like the 4 hour time frame just was easy. Finally, thank gosh. I mean, yes, I guess after a year you do something, things feel like they click. It was so much easier. So this year, same exact strategy. Now I'm not struggling with, you know, going from the 1 hour to the 4 hour. Now it's purely just the 4 hour time frame. Each setup feels, it's comfortable, even though holding, you know, it's exhausting, but it's just the setups are easy. This year clicked. And so full circle here. The strategy is, you know, it can be applied to any time frame, but the strategy itself isn't just, it's not for the specific time frames, and it's not only specific setups. So, and what I mean by that is like, when trend lines get broken, they get broken all the time. There's a lot of fake outs, and it's, okay, how do you identify, you know, which trades to take, which signals? Because you're going to get many signals. In my strategy this year, I probably would have gotten, even on the 4 hour time frame, maybe a solid 20 to 30, maybe even more than that, where a 4 hour trend line is broken, and it's deciphering which one do I take, which setup, which one do I pass up on, what is, you know, high probability, which one's low probability, high risk, low risk. So there's even intuition involved. And so it's a combination of things, but I think this year was just everything clicked.
What would you define as a high probable setup? So like for you to decipher that and say, okay, you know, there's a lot of signals, but this is what I would look for. So not only the trend line, but what else would you want? Obviously, intuition's a big part of it. Yeah. It's interesting because, as I said about these sort of 20, 30 year traders, very, very similar thing. That a lot of the time, some of the best trades is from obviously the signals are there, but then the gut feeling to size into those trades.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So how do you identify, what are you taking from the market to identify a high probable setup?
So it's all still going to be in accordance with the trend lines. It's a matter of how many touch points the trend line has, how long it's been respected, how much data is behind that trend line. There could be, you know, 3 touch points on a 4 hour trend line, but you got those 3 touch points within 2 weeks. So whereas a trend line that maybe you're looking at, you know, 4 months of data and it's got 3 touch points, that's just a hefty, you know, solid trend line there. And where the price is in conjunction to either one of the trend lines. So I'm always drawing bullish and bearish trend lines. So I'm always trying to figure out which one the price is going to trend along and waiting for one of those to break. And then the opposing trend line, is it close to it? Is this going to be a high risk trade? Am I going to have to give this a big pullback in order to see this thing work out? So it's figuring out how close the price is to the trend lines, how many touch points, how much data is behind it. So it's just kind of like a combination of all these things. All the stars need to align for the setup.
And in terms of that transition, I really want to touch on that because a lot of people struggle to change strategy, especially if it's not only, let's say, I don't know, using trend lines to suddenly using support resistance.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But mainly changing from, say, being a scalper to a swing trader. It's a big transition. And I've gone through a very similar thing as well. But like, what tips would you give to people in terms of making that transition? Any things that you struggled with that maybe you did certain things to help you get over that struggle? Is there anything you can share with the audience?
My entire 2023 was that in a nutshell. It was truly going through the two different time frames. And it's a matter of like understanding that you're going to relapse, and that's okay. I feel like we're on AA. You're going to relapse. You're going to go back to that previous time frame. And I did. You're going to go back to the 1 hour time frame, even though the goal is to move to this 4 hour time frame. So I would say giving yourself grace, knowing that this is going to be a process. It's going to take some time. That helped me, stay motivated even when I found myself in months like January. Mm-hmm. January was a red month, and a big red month too. And it was maybe also, having people to hold you accountable so that so you're not, when you do relapse or when you do go back to different time frames or start incorporating other things that you used before, maybe have a community or some friends or someone to hold you accountable that you can be like, okay, this is how many times I did what I was supposed to do. And then, I relapsed maybe 2 or 3 times or 2 or 3 trades. But I would say it's just giving yourself grace is huge. Understanding that it's going to be a tedious process. It took me a whole year. It took me a literal year just to feel like, okay, I got a handle-ish on swing trading. And now this year, we're halfway into the year already, and I truly feel like I've got it. We've got swing trading down. We've got this new time frame down, and that was a year and a half that I can say I am incredibly confident in this new time frame. So understand it's going to take time.
Yeah. So that patience, because I think, do you feel like a lot of traders, do you feel like they should adapt very quickly? It should be something that's quite done within a few weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe it shouldn't be as much of a struggle when the reality is you're completely kind of shifting how you look at the market.
Let's take a break for a minute there, guys, because I want to tell you about our brand new sponsor, WOP, a one-stop shop for all things digital assets and digital community. Now, if you're a trader out there looking to elevate your trading game, which is why you're watching this podcast, WOP is the place to find your community and find your mentor. There are tons of free trials that you can take advantage of today. So make sure you go check those out. Talking of which, on Words of Rizdom and Day Trading Show, we're hosting a free community on WOP. So make sure you join those. The links will be in the description. Now, for the creators out there, WOP is the one place that you need to be because they're a community-driven platform and they handle all aspects of your business. You can customize every element of your offer using WOP. You can either use their in-house apps or even sync your Telegram and Discord. One of the most important things that creators suffer with and worry about today is having a payment processor that won't shut them down. You don't have to worry about that at all using WOP. And just to add the cherry on top, they drive demand and subscriptions to your business just because you're hosted on their marketplace. It is a complete no-brainer. Now, there's a link in the description to book a call directly with them so you can get your community set up today. Check that out. Let's get back to the episode.
Oh yeah, it's a completely different view. What goes on in the 1 hour time frame versus the 4 hour time frame, there's so much that I don't even see that goes on throughout the day that, the 1 hour traders or even lower will see that. They'll see all this noise and all these opportunities, and I only see one candle in 4 hours. So it's a completely different world. But I would say it's a lot of traders, that's what they do with trading in general, is outside of even just trying to switch a time frame, they want to rush everything. And I feel like I am redundant at this point, and I've just repeated myself indefinitely for my entire, presence on social media. It's just me saying patience. Mm-hmm. But you can only say it so many times until they truly grasp the concept of, okay, this is going to take time. This is going to take a few years. And I think maybe just nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that it's going to take a few years. And then if they were to go, okay, I want to learn trading and it's going to take me a few years. And then if they want to also switch it up, go to a different time frame, that's going to take some time too. So it's just not a fun thing to hear, but that's the reality of it.
I think it's so true. We want to avoid pain or struggle, and we don't want to, as you say, we don't want to hear it. But equally as well, in terms of patience, as a swing trader, you're now having to wait for your setups much longer, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So the trade frequency goes down. But also holding your trades, you're holding them for longer, no doubt.
Mm.
How did you develop that? Is there anything that you did in particular, anything that helped to sort of develop that patience as a swing trader, to hold your trades longer, be more patient, to wait for your trade setups to come to you?
Oh, yeah.
Versus obviously scalping, where you might get a few trades in a day,
mm-hmm.
or at least a good few in the week quite easily.
Yeah.
So that's a big transition where you might not get a trade for maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I would say I had to go through some struggles first to identify what I was doing wrong, to maybe make some modifications. And one of the biggest things with swing trading that I found is, since it is so exhausting, I feel like I'm putting a bad light. Swing trading is incredible. It's been the most peaceful I've ever been in trading, but there's still struggles within it. And so as exhausting as it is, waiting for the setups, and you're waiting for just so long. You're waiting for so long. And then when you get the signal and it's, you have to take an L on that one, what a waste of time. You're like, oh my God, I just spent a week in this and we're coming out red. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. And I already had to wait a week for the setup. So that's 2 weeks that have gone by. And then, taking the next signal, and maybe, you're up in the next one, and then seeing, a week or two of price fluctuation where you see you're in the red and days have gone by, and then you're in the green, and then, more time goes by, and then you're up just a little bit more. And this is, if I could describe this scenario, I'm trying to do a very good job, but this has been a huge one for me, is when I'm holding this trade for so long, and, you're in drawdown for a little while, and then you're making money, and you're in drawdown, and then when you make money that second or third time around, you're exhausted by that point. You're so much more inclined to just take that profit because you're like, it's been a week, it's been 2 weeks, like, I'm exhausted, and we're up just a little bit more than I was a few days ago, and I don't want to have to go through that drawdown again in a few days, and then that maybe possibly result in a loss. So swing trading is just a lot of, you've got to let the trade ride out. You got to let it play out, and you don't know, at least for my strategy specifically, you don't know how long you're going to be in this. You don't know how long something's going to trend in a certain direction in your favor for. And I just found myself being exhausted by the time the move actually happened, that if I could have just put some things in place to help me free up some of that brain space, I would have been able to hold for that actual big move that I was truly in the trade for. So yes, it required some drawdown and some consolidation, some sideways movement. But if I could have saved some energy and not been so exhausted by the time when it actually went, where I'd clip out early. And I think that was one of my biggest struggles. So just finding coping strategies, keeping yourself occupied, making sure that obviously, stop losses are in place so that you can sleep somewhat comfortably at night, even though, you never can, but somewhat comfortably. Yeah. And I would say removing dollar amounts, that's always helpful. Maybe even removing the open P&L and just looking at the, the entry, the arrow where you got in. But there's a lot of things you can put into place, but it's having to go through the mistakes first and identify them and be like, oh, if I could fix this one thing, imagine how much my trading would have changed. I would be up much more than 100K, even this year, because I'm struggling with just simply dollar amounts because I'm increasing position size this year. So things like that. You just got to identify the problem. Let's, put some coping strategies in place. And that's so many different things. Everybody's different. Some people need to go to the gym. Some people need to read a book. Some people need to vent, talk to friends. So there's a lot of different things, but just doing whatever you can to free up that space in your mind that it takes up, because it truly does. I don't know what part of your brain it takes up, but it's an exhausting all of it. It truly is exhausting. So just making sure that you can free yourself in a way and do things to keep you positive and still motivated.
A lot of people don't realize that what you're touching on there is so important, because even doing podcasts, for example, it takes a lot of mental energy to do podcasts, a lot of mental energy to hold trades or be really dialed into the markets. And a lot of people don't recognize that. There's a reason why if people have been there, which most people would have been there, they sort of reflect on how they felt after, like, whether the trade lost or won, or just at the end of that day, or at the end of the day of podcasting, or I'm trying to think if there's any other sort of examples. But essentially, at the end of it, you're very fatigued, but you haven't moved.
Oh my God, yeah.
You haven't moved a muscle. You've just been staring at this chart, or we've just been sitting here. But at the end of it, you're very fatigued because it's taking that mental capital. And that mental energy is really taxing all around. And one thing you do very well, from what, again, social media makes you think that but from what I can observe is you seem to got a decent routine going in terms of, extra, like, I think you do tennis, right? Yoga, I believe. I'm not sure what else. Probably other things as well.
Cycling, all exactly.
I remember hiking recently. I saw. How important is that for your, for your trading even? As you said, to keep busy, to sort of make sure that space is free and ready for when the time is right.
It's incredibly important. And the way that you just put it was the coolest thing ever. Mental capital. Oh my God. If we were talking mental capital, I would have blown many accounts. Like, not having things in place, like the mental capital is so important. And that's such a funny way to put it. I never thought of it that way, but it's incredible. You could spiral, you could go on tilt. Like, imagine the things that you do when you're not in a healthy headspace in life. Like the way that you react to relationships, friendships, your job. Like when you're not in a good headspace, there is no way that you could be productive in a healthy way. So if you can put some things into place, and there's so much that comes with it. It's it's therapy, it's self-awareness, it's investing in your relationships, having an outlet, the gym, tennis, sports, reading. It's just there's a lot of ways that you can have an outlet, but figuring out which one works best for you. But it's incredible. It's incredibly important too. It's just your trading will result in how healthy of a headspace you have. And that's even like confidence and affirmations, giving yourself positive self-talk. If you think that you're a crummy trader, you're gonna be a crummy trader. Like you've got to be confident in yourself. And I think there's a verse that my uncle used to always tell me. It's as a man thinketh, so is he, something of that nature. Mm-hmm. And that is completely true. And like that goes for everyone. If you think you're gonna be great, you're gonna be great. How wild. And even if that's in your own head, you're gonna be great. So it's the mental space that you're in plays a huge role in your trading, and just point blank, period.
It's something you mentioned there, which is so important. It's like you have to be confident as a trader.
Oh my gosh,
And
yes.
we talk about ego a lot, right? It's very dangerous to a trader,
Yeah.
but it's also necessary. Like if you don't back yourself and feel confident and believe in what you can do, you're never going to be able to really maximize your potential in the markets.
Oh my God, right.
But equally, if you let it go too far, it becomes very dangerous.
Yeah.
That's why balance is an interesting thing, because most people try and say it's not possible. And I think the reality is it's not that. It's kind of like with trading. It's like if you say you have a 50-50 strike rate, it's not literally like every 10 trades I take, 5 of them win, 5 of them lose.
Right.
It's just understanding there's an average there. It's going to play out. And the same with the balance, I think. Like you will have moments where the ego comes out a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have moments where you maybe doubt little things. But the reality is you want to be in a space where generally, for the majority of time, over the long period, you back yourself, you're confident.
Mm-hmm.
You're not too ego. The ego doesn't really take over.
Yeah.
But it's in a very healthy and proper way forward, especially as a trader. But generally in life, I think it's very important to do that too.
Agreed.
One thing you touched on though, just a moment ago, in terms of like your focus now is to increase size.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I was going to discuss with you anyway in terms of swing trading. My thought process would be, because you're taking less trades and they're taking a bit longer to play out, is that the focus? Are you risking more than what you would when you were scalping previously?
I am. Mm-hmm. And since I am drawing these trend lines in higher time frames, I've got to give them more room as well. So whereas when I'm in a 5 minute or a 1 hour, I mean, that's a tight trend line, and you can minimize that risk by just coming in steep with one of your trend lines. So I'd say I have to give it a lot more room. And what I did find myself doing last year that did hurt my trading was I did try to go too steep with the trend lines in the 4 hour time frame. And I tried to use less data simply just to help mitigate the risk, just to help cut the risk in half. Whereas if I had just used the very obvious and valid trends in these higher time frames and really given it some wiggle room, essentially, then that's what I have to do in that higher time frame. So I would say the risk is higher, absolutely, but it doesn't have to be. You can simply, if you're going to move up a time frame, you could reduce position size and then kind of find that balance there. But I'm looking to, after our last pod, I've been inspired, and now I did it gradually, so I'm not going from 0 to 100, but I'm doing about 20 contracts in platinum these days, and it's the coolest thing. I started out with 10 contracts at the beginning of the year, and gradually kind of worked my way to these 20 contracts, but it also comes with confidence. Like, I'm very confident when I'm trading platinum versus crude oil. Crude oil this year, I think I've only my position sizing has been 10 contracts, but with platinum, 20, and it's easy. I feel confident and comfortable in it. So it's having the confidence in the instrument you're trading with as well. But if you're going to scale up, like understanding that it has got to be done gradually, you've got to make sure that the strategy has proven itself in its entirety. And watching the ego, I'm incredibly, I think that's one thing that I'm very proud of, or a good trait that I have, is I'm very aware when I do get ego, and I don't let it interfere my trading. So when I did have I had a lot of my personal best this year, actually. So 30K was my biggest singular trade this year. Super exciting. The next one, I believe I placed a $10,000 trade, and I was happy with 10K. I was like, okay, we don't need to go any bigger than the last one. We're going to even come in a little bit lighter. We're only going to hold for a little while. So it's just understanding that the time frames, if you're going to position up, making sure that strategy is good, position sizing is not too hefty, and you do it gradually, and then just having the confidence in your instrument. But I think a lot of things come into play, but you got to have the confidence, bringing it all back together. You got to have the confidence if you are going to start to scale up in position size.
Well, I think one thing that's interesting, just from observing what we've talked about so far, is that last year you made the transition from scalper to swing. Now this year, now you're comfortable with the transition, and you've gotten the data, the experience, results even. Now you're focused on then increasing risk, and I feel like it's something we have to highlight that, because most people will do both at the same time.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And that's probably the recipe for disaster, because I've seen people where they're profitable scalping, or they have a profitable strategy, especially with like prop firms, for example. They pass the challenges, get funded, and then they change something.
Yeah.
And that mindset, I've been there myself, don't get me wrong, so it's not like I'm judging anyone, but it's like, it doesn't make sense. Like, what you just did works, and it got you to that point. If why make changes is one question, but let's say if it's a valid reason, lifestyle, whatever it may be, but why do it there and then? The whole change from risk to strategy, that's not going to work.
That
that's why it was
sounds
important.
like a recipe for disaster.
100%. But that's why I wanted to highlight it, because it was interesting, because it wasn't like you were saying, this is exactly what I did. It was just like, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, you go, well, the transition strategy there built the confidence, built the consistency. Now we increase size.
Exactly.
And we'll work on that, right?
Yeah.
And then next it might be wherever else it might be. It might be trade management, for example.
Right. Yeah.
But how important has data been to help you do that whole process? Like TradeZella, for example. The sort of data you can get from there when it comes to hold times, when it comes to average drawdown, etc. How helpful has it been to see data on, especially when making the transition, and then even with risk?
Let's take a break for a minute there, guys, because I want to tell you about the best trading tool on the market, TradeZella. The reason why TradeZella is the #1 trading tool that every trader needs is because you can do backtesting, automated journaling, trade replay, in-depth analytics, and so much more. And the greatest part about TradeZella is that it's all automated. All you have to do is connect your MT4 and MT5. It will pull all your data onto the dashboard. You can add playbooks. You can just add notes. You can add images from your trades, and you can get the insights that is necessary for you to progress as a trader. Now, TradeZella is for absolutely everyone. Whether you're a crypto trader, whether you're a Forex trader, whether you trade prop firms, it is for absolutely everyone. And that is why thousands of traders have signed up using my link here through the podcast. Make sure you use the code RIZ10 for 10% off your monthly subscription, or WOR for 20% off your yearly subscription. The link is in the description below. And let's get back to the episode.
I would say for the data has been more beneficial to, and this is in all honesty, to my community, to where I can share, so people can truly kind of like dissect my strategy. They can see, okay, this is her hold time, she's in this time frame, she's using this amount of contracts, this is her win rate, this is her win percentage, like all of this data to kind of showcase the strategy. But I think I'm at a point where I've never used the data to change my trading. I think I use it more of like I would like an actual, like a diary or a journal, to where I see, the hard times that I've gone through and the struggles that I've gone through. And I try to see, okay, what do they have in common? Just like if I was to go back through my journal and see, okay, is there like a cycle here that, things I'm going through in my life? And same with my trading. I would go back through my losses and be like, okay, is there a common denominator? Am I, after I hold for a week, I'm too exhausted and I end up taking losers or clipping out early. So I would say when it comes to using the data for my own strategy or my own trading to make modifications, it's more so just seeing what I've done wrong and seeing if there's something in common to slightly tweak. But as far as like the win percentage goes and the TradeZella score and the win rate, all of the cool goodies that you get to see in these analytics of my trading. That's more so to showcase, because I don't incorporate any of that into my trading. Even my win percentage, I've never known what it is. I've never used my win percentage to
make any decisions.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it's just been cool to showcase it and be like, okay, this is my stats. I don't know much about it or what it has to do with anything, but here it is. I mean, obviously it's got something to do with something.
Well, I think what you highlighted there is actually the most important part of journaling anyway, is recognizing the patterns.
Yeah.
Because would you say you do the same with your wins though? So not win percentage, but you look at, okay, these are my wins. Here's a pattern here, whether it's hold time or whether it may be.
Yeah.
So, and I've always said that's the most important bit of journaling, is that you're really just trying to look at the patterns. And because when there's a pattern, it's much easier to identify versus like, why was that a big loss?
Right.
It's just by itself.
Exactly.
Just very random. But when it's a pattern, then you can say, okay, this is a negative pattern. When we recognize this in real time now, we need to avoid or do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Same with a positive one though, right? So like when you recognize, hey, these big size trades, they all have they were all taken on a Tuesday.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
As an example, random one, but I think that's the most important part of it. And I think the reason why most people aren't able to get those insights, because my biggest thing has always been, the best thing you can do as a trader is if you can learn how to just take less losses, right? Meaning, if you take less trade, the losing trades, the patterns, if you recognize the pattern and you're able to identify it, you remove them. That's the best case scenario, because you take less trades, but you make more money without taking more trades.
Right.
And that's like the hack, if you will, because it's like, okay, you've now taken away those losses from your P&L, which then increased your P&L without taking another trade. And
it's the easiest change right there.
And I think most traders, unfortunately, if they were able to focus on that, and unfortunately they don't, but if they were able to focus on that, because a lot of people overtrade, right? And a lot of traders take trades outside of their plan, so it's already a bit hard anyway. But if they start focusing on that, not taking more winners, not trying to say, how do I win more? It's just, how do I lose less?
Yeah.
That, I think, is probably one of the first steps to profitability.
Yeah. And I would say, as far as taking out as many variables as you can is incredible. If you can try to be as consistent with everything that you do in your trading, so that you can do something like that, so that you can see, is there a pattern and is there very few variables here involved to where I can just remove one or add one thing. And it's almost like a freaking science fair project. The least amount of variables that you have, you've got your hypothesis, you've got your thesis, you got to figure out, okay, let's only have, 3 things that we're trying, 3 things. And let's see how these 3 things do over X amount of time. And then now we've got data. Now let's see, okay, let's remove this one of 3 things and see what changes. And it's going to take time. You've got to let things play out. But having the least amount of variables in your trading is going to be huge. And that's I think why I'm so successful in my trading, is it's got very few variables involved. And but I would say, as far as like the journaling goes, it's so much more crucial as a new trader who's trying to develop a strategy and show that consistency and that profitability, or maybe they're learning something new and they need to see the data to see if it's working. Maybe a trader is trying to find out if they can go live or go full time. So there's a lot of transitions to where you need the data. Like, you need to be able to prove it to yourself outside of just, okay, I'm green and it's been 6 months. No, like, you need to see, okay, over all of this data, I can prove to myself I've implemented this new thing or that new thing, or this is my strategy and I've got the results to back it up and the data to back it up. So I think as a new trader, and when I say new, I mean, like, I'm still talking like, if you're trading for 5 years, you still need to be very, very involved in your trading journal and your trading stats. But I think outside of that, once you've developed your strategy, or like where you're at a point where I'm in, and it's just, it doesn't play as much of a role, but it's still way cool to see the data and to see the stats, but it doesn't necessarily change my strategy.
And goal-wise, like, where is your vision in terms of trading? Where does it go? How long do you feel like you'll do it for life?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I can see my uncle still trades, and he, I think he's maybe less. He doesn't talk about it as much anymore, and I think he's become more reserved with his trading. And I think maybe that happens when you get older, and but maybe you have maybe he's like working in silence, and maybe some crazy moves are happening that he's just not talking about,
That short, that's what he's waiting
right?
for, yeah.
Exactly. So, but I think just since I've seen my uncle benefit from it for his entire 30 years that he's been trading, I can see, like, why not? Why would you not continue to trade forever. Like, why? It's just you're pressing buttons. It doesn't require any physical labor. Like, you don't have to be a special someone to be able to trade. So I think that's something that you can truly do until it's
So do you feel like everyone can be a trader?
I'm gonna say yes. And the only reason I say this is because, like, an example would be, like, not everyone can sing. Like, can you sing? Are you a good singer?
We'll have to find out one
You
day.
probably could be. Like, there is truly a possibility to where you could be coached to sing. If they find your range and you're taught, these notes and how long to hold. Like, if you can be taught how to be a singer, I feel like you can be taught how to trade. And it's a matter of, training and time and dedication. But I truly think that anyone could, as long as I think it can be taught. There's a lot of psychology involved and, like, traits as a person, but I think all of it can be learned. So I truly do think that anyone can be a trader, but it's just the person who can really commit, like, can actually, if they've got things, like, maybe they've got an anger problem, like, that's gonna put you on the back end of trading, or it's gonna give you what's the word I'm looking for here? You're gonna have a disadvantage in trading if you can't handle anger and losses. So that's gonna give you a disadvantage, but it doesn't mean that's not something you can't work on and fix towards your trading. So the type of person you are maybe does give you an advantage or a disadvantage, but I think everyone can learn.
Do you feel like you have to be passionate about the markets, like everything about the markets, and not just the results that you can get?
Oh yeah. Otherwise, this would be pointless for you, and I don't think you would be as dedicated. Like, maybe the dollar amounts would make you motivated, but it wouldn't give you the discipline or the longevity in it. And I think you got to have the passion for it. And it's such a weird thing to be passionate about. It's like literally numbers on a chart. How do you be passionate about that? But it's fascinating. It's cool to have a community too, because it helps build the passion, and it's the excitement, and to see everyone else, you're like, oh, I'm not the only weirdo that's passionate about numbers on a chart. You know what I'm saying? But I think I'm passionate about how long I've been doing it, to where there's just, when you develop like intuition in the markets, and when you've been doing this for so long, it's just, you feel like you've unlocked the matrix. Like, it's the coolest thing. So I think that's part of the journey. That's part of the excitement, the passion, but also, the freedom it gives you and the lifestyle it gives you. So it's a combination of things, but hands down, you have to be passionate about it.
Would you say that before coming across trading, you would ever see yourself doing this?
Oh my God, no. Absolutely not. If my uncle did not trade, I would be cutting hair right now. There's no way I would have ever, in any other dimension, universe, seen myself get into trading. No way. Like, it's just, thank gosh my uncle got me into it. Maybe I would have taken some sort of like online path. Maybe I would have been a website coder or something, some dorky girl, which I code, so I can say that. But like, I maybe would have pursued that so much more. But I think, no, I never in 1,000 years would have thought I'd be getting into trading. Wild.
What would your advice be to the new traders out there? You've gone through a journey. You've been very transparent. You've documented it very well. And you've also taught as well. And so therefore you probably recognize a lot of common mistakes or pitfalls, or good practices as well that people can do to try and avoid those things. What would be your biggest advice to new traders?
I have found myself, for the most part, I'd mentioned before that it feels like trading advice has become redundant, and I'm saying the same things over and over again, and everyone knows that it's going to be a long process, and this is going to be tedious, and it's going to take time and grit and perseverance, and you can say that all day. But one thing that I think is the most important, that I've just come to find, it almost like an epiphany. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where I can give all credit to my success, is because of this one thing. And this is, maybe it's going to blow your mind, maybe it's not, but it is the fact that if you are, now let's say this doesn't apply to those who have decided to do their own research on trading, and they, put in the trial and error. They did the, the testing, the A/B testing, tried this strategy, tried that one. I'm going to say that this doesn't count for them. But for the newbies that are just truly looking to have someone show them the way, like show them the light, the strategy, it is having full and complete utter faith in, maybe we don't even have to say the person. Maybe we can take a guru or a mentor or an educator out of the equation and say it's just the strategy. If you can have, I'm talking like full faith, I'm talking unwavering faith that this strategy is going to work. Let's say that if you are guaranteed success 5 years from now, you knew exactly where you were going to be if you just stuck to this strategy. You would not waver. You would know exactly what you're going to get. You would have tunnel vision. You would work in every different way. It's just the mindset you would have knowing and having full faith in the strategy that you're trading is going to get you to success. And I think that is the number one thing, is having full, complete, utter faith in the strategy and sticking to it. If you didn't, that's where I think traders kind of stray, or they can't find success or consistencies, because they'll try a strategy, they don't believe it works, they're already iffy about it, they don't think that it's the one for them, and then they pivot and they go to another strategy, and then it's just a vicious cycle where if that trader had stuck to one thing, now obviously you have to truly be convinced that this is the one. So if you're not, then maybe find a strategy. But once you've been convinced that you found the strategy, and there's so many things that come into play. So understanding there are different strategies, many that can be profitable. So figuring out, sure, which one is for you, that might be an interesting process. But once you do find your strategy, if you could just commit everything you have to that strategy, there is nothing but success on the other side. Every day you're working on the same strategy, the faith in it, the trust in it, it's just, I don't know how else to explain it, but if you committed everything to mastering that strategy, there is nothing but success at the end of it.
Yeah, it's that conviction.
Yeah.
Just being completely focused on it. I think it doesn't make complete sense because, as you say, a lot of people will learn a strategy, but they doubt it already. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, and I've said this a few times, is that they're striving to find a strategy that guarantees them, profitability. What you said is true though. When you believe in something and then you understand the markets, if you do it long enough and you actually believe in it, it will be successful. But what they're looking for is beyond that. They're looking for the strategy that lets them read the market like a book. The 100% strike rate, predict every single movement that's possible. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if it's because we want to be perfect, we want to be the very best, we want to have. I think a lot of it comes down to you want to feel extremely confident on every trade. Yeah. And I get that, because it's like, why would you take a trade if you thought it would lose, right? Or if you weren't confident about it. But at the end of the day, we're in the probability game. No matter how good you are, no matter how good your setup may be, no matter how profitable you've been in the past, every trade is unique and every trade has the risk. Yeah. And I think that's what people are trying to get away from, is like having to feel that risk.
Yeah. And I would say even those seem so much more appealing as far as the leverage you can get with the strategy, how much you have to put into it, the time it takes. Everyone wants to shortcut all of that. And so I guess the hardest part would be finding the strategy that works for you, which I get it's like finding a soulmate. It's going to be tricky. But I would say once you do find that soulmate, like just hang on to it for dear life. Yeah. And like you said, understand its probabilities, and it's not going to have the perfect, win rate. And there's going to be risk involved, and you'll learn the strategy with time, but yeah, I would say it's a shiny thing, and I guess that's obvious to why traders would want that one shiny strategy when it's a facade. It's not real. It's actually, there isn't that one secret strategy.
That's it. And I think patience as well, not only in terms of being a patient trader and patient on results, but also patience in finding the strategy. Yeah. I think a lot of people are in a rush constantly to get involved, right? Just as they're in a rush to start trading versus like going through demo or simulated or backtest, whatever it may be. They're always in a rush to start trading. Because a lot of people, that's one thing I think that happens actually. It's not that they're iffy about the strategy straight away. It's that they learn it, rush through the learning, but then rush to trade it without the understanding, don't get the results, and then they doubt it.
Yes, exactly that. That is huge. That was the first thing that my uncle taught me. I wanted to go straight into live. I wanted to go straight into live trading. And he understood that that's not how it works. And he knows that's how traders fail. That's how they give up. They lose faith, hope in the strategy, is exactly that. Maybe they have, confidence in the strategy, and they're like, all right, I've learned it. Let's go live. And then they lose, and they're like, oh, this can't be real. This isn't right.
Find something else. Yeah. And so on, yeah. It's an unfortunate thing that we see a lot of negative cycles. And it's like you said, though, like trading advice is a bit redundant because we hear the same thing over and over. But the reality is that same advice is true. That's the problem. Don't get me wrong. That is,
very much true.
And I wish there was something new we could come up with.
I know.
Because it's always fun. But I mean, the best thing is like, especially as either educators or just people trying to provide value. The hard bit is realizing that you might explain something in a certain way, but that only resonates with 30% of people. In the sense that their perception, they can take that on board. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like you do good at it, and I think good educators do, is that they find the way to even explain that same thing again in a different way, so that the next 30% can then understand, and so on. And
Absolutely.
that is a bit of a struggle, because obviously there's only so many ways that we can naturally think of something. But that's why I think analogies are very good. When you relate trading to professional sports, or when you progress with and discipline with the gym, for example, or diets.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There's a reason these things are mentioned, because they just translate. They and to be fair, more people can understand a bit better of, okay, this is why. So like with the gym, the discipline necessary to actually make progress, the same discipline is required in trading.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then people may understand it a bit better, but then the non-gym goers might be like, well, what do you mean?
True. Exactly. Yeah.
Find a new way that resonates with that person.
Absolutely.
The industry, it's very, very fun.
Oh, it is. I've tried to make some Dune analogies. The new movie Dune came out. One of my favorites. Oh, all right. We're going to leave it. No spoilers.
We're going to know. I literally, as in, we'll start talking about it. And this podcast will change. I love, like, Dune is really weird.
Oh, I love Dune.
Dune 2. Have you seen Dune 2?
Oh, yeah. And read the book.
Incredible.
I'm a dork for it.
Honestly. I always wanted the podcast to be more of a chilled pod, where it's like you talk about movies and all that.
Right? If we could relay it back,
people didn't
always.
like it.
Oh, Bill.
They were like, they used to be like, you stop talking, Riz. Yeah, let the guests talk. So I've always done that, which is, I guess that's why we've done what we've done.
I guess, but it's enjoyable to get,
We'll get there. We'll get there one day. We'll do a Dune special.
Oh, right. I'm in.
And there'll be another film. So then when that comes out,
absolutely,
we'll do a viewing party.
Okay, please. Please. That'd be so great.
But I think it's important as well, because like a lot of traders are so serious all the time, and it's not a bad thing, right? Don't get me wrong. Obviously, when you're trying to learn, you're trying to be dialed in. Yes, give the time, right? That's where most people fail, is that they're not giving the time consistently, and they're not focused when they are giving the time. But equally, you gotta lighten up a little bit.
Oh,
just
you
a tiny
have to.
bit.
I mean, just like that, that mental capital we were talking about. Like, there is only one way to add to that bank account, and that is simply by, having other things to do, having some lighthearted, conversations or hobbies that you're into, or things that you get into, movies, games. Like, absolutely, that builds into the capital for sure.
Talking about that mental capital, earlier you mentioned about handling the fluctuations of your trades. Now you're swing trading, more size as well, so bigger numbers. And especially with swing trading, what a lot of people who don't swing trade don't understand is those fluctuations can be quite heavy. You can be going from $10,000 in profit 1 minute back to break even.
Oh my God, yes.
Back up to 5, into negative, back up to 15, back to 10. How are you handling that? Like, what did you struggle with it?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Last year more so. This year I'm getting a handle on it, but it was exhausting. And like this year, I think, is a reflection of the things that I've done to put into place to help me with that. And it's just having less, resentment towards the market when you do commit 2 weeks to something and you come out with nothing. Like, and being okay with that. And I think that's where it helps, understanding that this is part of the process. This is what I'm going to do. And I would say it's just kind of what I was talking about earlier, where you get exhausted after, so many trades where you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. A week has gone by, 2 weeks has gone by. And then you're more inclined to take that profit when you're up only a little bit, because you've been exhausted through this entire time, whereas you still haven't let the trade play out. You haven't let the move, be had yet. So understanding that this is going to take time, swing trading is. It's literally what it is. It's just time. It's waiting for it. So I would say just having an understanding of it. I think before, it was still new to me, and I struggled with it, but this year I just understand that these things are going to take time. But I think this year specifically, I struggled with some new things that I didn't struggle with last year. So last year I was taking as many setups as I could. Even though I was swing trading, I was still waiting. But like I said, I got plenty of signals this year and only took 6. So like, what made me only take 6 versus last year where I took as many as I could? And I think this year I am I'm being much more picky about the trades. I want like an A++, setup. I want to feel really good about the trade. Outside of, X, Y, and Z adding up, I want to have a good gut feeling about the trade. So there's just a lot of things that come into play this year. The thing that I'm struggling with the most this year while increasing position size is the dollar amounts and not actually looking at the trade itself. If I go back and look at this is actually a mistake I've made every trade I've taken this year. Really? Every one out of all 6, we'll say 5 out of 6, is I clipped out early because I'm up X amount, and that's exciting, and it's cool. It's way cool to be up 30,000, 20,000, 10,000. But if I go back and actually analyze every trade, entries were sniper, by the book, A++. Exits, none of them were by the book. None of them. Mm-hmm. Like I truly was just up X amount. I'm like, yay,
secure.
Close it. Yes. Mm-hmm. Now I can't complain. Like absolutely, profit is profit. I'm going to be happy about that all day. We're up 100K with just simply a great entry, not an excellent exit, but still. But I would say, even though, since I've been doing this for so long, even if I take the dollar amount off, like I still know, which sucks, like I still know how much I'm going to be up. Mm-hmm. So if I can truly, that's something that I'm going to continue to struggle with or wrestle with for the rest of the year, is being more comfortable with those dollar amounts and let the trade play out for its entirety. Even if I'm up, 50,000 and I have to let it come back to 30 or 40 because that's what the strategy said to do, mm-hmm. I have got to get comfortable with that. That if I'm going to continue to, mature as a trader and level up as a trader, I have to do that. Yep. So I can't just close these trades because I'm up a dollar amount. But it's cool. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's amazing. But that's absolutely what I'm working on for the rest of this year, is let the trade play out.
Well, 1 year from today.
Yes.
We'll do this again.
Exactly.
And then that will be ticked off. And then we'll be the
next
thing.
I believe
Whatever
that.
the next thing is.
I believe it completely.
But Tori, it's been an absolute pleasure. We're actually we normally would go a bit longer, but thanks to you decided to push me to do a roundtable with some of the best female traders.
Absolutely.
So I'm very excited.
So
We're going to go do that now. So big props to you for helping put that together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Everyone at home, make sure you drop a comment with your biggest takeaway from this incredible episode. The links for Tori will be in the description below. There'll be other episodes on screen somewhere floating around in the ether here. Check them out. Check out the Day Trading Show. And until next time, everyone, take care.